So for this problem, we want to make this expression a perfect square. The perfect square is something like this, plus or minus r squared. So that's a perfect square. So we have different approaches, but because we have the coefficient of x squared to be 1 here, so now this is simple, right? So we can have x minus something and x, I mean plus or minus, right? Plus or minus something, then minus something. So it can be plus or minus, right? It can be plus or minus. So now what do we do here? What do we do? Now, remember we want to have x plus r all squared or x minus r all squared. That is what we want. So we want the same thing, right? We want the same thing. But we cannot have positive, right? We cannot have positive. We cannot have positive because this is negative. We have negative here, so we cannot have positive because if we have positive here, this will have to be positive. So that shows this is not our option. So this is our option now. But we need negative 4x. For negative 4x, that shows we need what? X squared. We need negative 2x, negative 2x. So that shows we need 2 here. So now if we expand this, we have x squared. X times this is negative 2x. Negative 2 times this is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So we have x squared negative 4x positive 4. So now we know the value of our p. We know that the value of our p is positive 4. Now that is the first approach. Now second approach, just in case the value here is not 1. So we have a method called completing the square. Completing the square. Remember, we want to have a perfect square, so we want to complete the square. Now what do you do? In completing the square, remember whether the coefficient of x squared is 1 or not. The first step is to make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1. So what do? You divide through by the coefficient that you have there if it is not 1. Now the next step is find the coefficient. Find the coefficient of x. Now what is the coefficient of x? That is negative 4. Now you find the half of the coefficient of x. Now what is the half? The half is negative 2. Then lastly, you square the half. Square the half of the coefficient of x. If you square the half, you get 4. And these 4, whatever you get here, we complete the square. We make it a perfect square. So we have 4 here, we have positive 4 here. And that will give us option C. Option C. So you can use the first approach or use the second approach, but the second approach works generally. I hope you understand this concept. Now we move to the next problem.